Welcome to Therapist Spotlight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Angie's Therapist Spotlight, the podcast where we aim to showcase our wonderful members to the wider community. I'm your host, Joshua Brooks, and with us today is Christos Miliankos. Christos is a naturopath, so this is going to be an excellent conversation. So, Christos, how are you today?
I'm very well, thanks, Joshua.
Excellent. So, first question, what got you into natural medicine and natural health?
Well, back in 1992, I finished a science degree, and then I went traveling in Japan. And while I was in Japan, I stumbled across a bookstore with lots of natural therapy books. And I just bought one and started reading, and I just remember being glued to it. And I guess I was in the headspace to try new things. So I tried a lot of things in the book. I tried some fastings, I tried some great diets and things like that. And I just remember getting more and more hooked. And I was traveling actually for about 2 years. So when I came back when I was 24, I really wanted to study natural therapies. But it was really difficult because I spent all my money traveling for 2 years. I lived in Japan for a year. Then I went traveling in Europe and Asia. And what I did was I became a teacher. So then I started becoming a teacher and a naturopath at the same time. So I studied at the Southern School of Natural Therapies in 1994. And I did that for about 8 years while I actually worked as well to pay my way through college. And just loved it. I loved herbal medicine. I just devoured it. And as you can see, I'm a big herbalist. I've got lots of herbs behind me. And I loved iridology, and I sort of continued with that a lot after college. Yeah, that's what got me into natural medicine.
Yeah, awesome. And so did you think that traveling really added a little bit of perspective and different skill sets? And how do you think that influenced your practice and the way you practice now?
Hugely, because I guess straight out of college, I was kind of a bit immature and I didn't really know what I wanted. It wasn't until I was 24 that I decided I wanted to do natural therapies, and that's my main profession. I've had a clinic for about 20 years. So I don't think I could have done that straight out of college for some reason. I know lots of people go straight out of college now, straight out of high school, and it's great. But I think I just needed that personal, just almost like finding myself. And, everywhere I went, I learned more and more about natural medicines. I studied a bit. I lived for 3 months in a Tibetan community and learned a lot about their traditional medicines after Japan. I did a little bit of training in Nepal and then on to Europe. So everywhere I went, I sort of really devoured their traditional medicines, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that just sounds amazing. Like it must have broadened your mindset so much.
It was a great time.
Yeah, definitely. And so 20 years is a long time to be in the industry. How have you seen natural therapies change, and how has it sort of changed your own practice, I guess?
Well, I've seen it change a lot, actually. I think it was a lot more holistic back when I was studying. Now a lot of people want more things that are research-based and things like that. And one of my great loves is iridology, for instance. And I still practice that every single day. I take photos of everyone's eyes. And again, I keep up with the research and things that people want. But I really feel like sometimes we've lost some of those traditional things because I feel like the body gives us so many messages, like whether it's in our fingers or in our hands or in our tongue. I look at like every single person that sees me, I always look at their tongue, their nails and their eyes at a minimum, because I just really find that those particular ways, the body just gives us clues. I mean, people love having a VLA test and love having an allergy test where they take away a report, but I really feel that sometimes we've lost some of those traditional ways to assess.
Definitely. And it's incredibly interesting to me. I mean, like when you talk about, it's all so scientific and so clinical and all that sort of stuff, it sounds great. But if you actually realize how a trial's put together, if you actually realize how it's so narrow in terms of its variables, and there are so many variables that we're not even sure that we don't know, so how to account for that, you really do realize that, well, maybe some of these traditional ways were, valid and have such a rich tapestry because they tap into that thing that we're not even sure we don't even know.
Absolutely. And I think they're both valid. I love going to seminars where they explain the research and everything, but I just think they're both valid.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that using them both together really does give us that richer tapestry of finding out what's going on. So if I am a client and I'm coming to you, what can I expect from a consultation? What sort of questions will you ask? What tests will you run? And what's an iridology look like for me? What can I expect from that for people who don't know?
Yeah. So originally, I mean, first of all, people come in, I say hello, have a little chit chat about what brought them here and who might have recommended them, etc. They might tell me a little bit of a story there, and then I ask them about their primary issues, why they've come, and then that sort of starts us into a little conversation. I always take people's diet. I think that's super important. Then I start a little process of assessing. So I always I generally start with their nails. Look at their nails, ask them if they're strong. Might feel their, to see if they've got good circulation. Then I'll look at their tongue, and the tongue is really an incredible way to assess what's happening in the gut, because it's actually the start of the digestive tract. So we look at the tongue and see, if there's any signs in the liver area or the gut area, etc. And all of these things aren't a diagnosis at all. They're just ways to increase the questioning. So it just drives you to the right questions. And then I look in their eyes. So with the eyes, I use a camera, and I take a good photo, and then I blow it up on the actual camera. If it depends on timing. Sometimes people have a longer appointment where I put it up on the computer, or I blow it up on the camera, and I just show them different parts of their iris. First of all, I really just focus on constitution. So, I mean, by looking at the constitution of an iris, you can tell whether their best diet is a lymphatic type of diet, or the best diet is like looking after their liver, or a circulatory diet. So then I give them a sheet of paper about their type of diet, and we go through that. And I usually say that the eyes show what they've inherited from their last 3 generations. So parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. And I say whether you manifest the best case scenario or the worst case scenario depends on how you eat, drink, think, live, and love. And that's what I'm there trying to help them work out what the best way is. And usually people say, yeah, my dad's got this, or my mum's had breast cancer, and I usually explain that like genes really are about 25% of what happens to us. Like 75% is really what we do with those genes. So you have to have a key to unlock the genes generally, and a lot of people do because they live life a bit unconsciously. They sort of follow the diet of their ancestors, and don't really take much notice of their life, and that's why some of those things may manifest. So, and usually I might say people with eyes like yours are usually related to someone who may have had some sugar issues. Do you know anyone like that? So I take it away from a personal thing for them, because I really want them to leave my clinic in a positive way. I don't want them to think that they've got weaknesses in their pancreas. I just want them to, think that what they need is some more balance in their sugars, or living a life that they love more.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. So then how does that look like in a treatment plan? I know everybody's different with the caveat, but you said that you love herbs. So what does that look like when you're describing for people?
Sure. So a lot of people that I see also, I do a lot of VLA tests, so bioimpedance analysis, and I also do allergy testing a lot. So depending on their results, I'll either use herbs or homeopathy. So let's say someone's come in for headaches, let's say. So I might make them up a herbal mix for headaches. I might also add, because often it's to do with emotional issues, and I find the flower essences mixed with, well, not mixed in the same bottle, but working with herbs are great. So I'll often make them up a flower essence mix, and that's generally where I start. I try and really start simply. I don't want them to go out with 5 or 6 or 7 different products. I usually get them a herb and maybe some drops, possibly some magnesium or something like that.
And do you find that when you sort of take that simpler approach where you do sort of focus on more one thing, you get longer lasting and better results?
Yeah. Because what I talk to them about is the treatment plan. Like, we don't want to fix everything at once, because then the body goes into sort of, overdrive anyway. So we might, tackle their headaches, and, if that's better, then, we might tackle their, candida issues, or, often I start people with a detox. And say, after the first month, what we'll do is we'll try some desensitizing to your allergies with some homeopathy. And so I try and do things in processes rather than all together. Because if you do it all together, I find that people don't want to do it all, or they're overwhelmed, or their body's overwhelmed.
For sure, yeah. And again, especially if, you do have a whole bunch of different metabolites and they get released from the fat cells, it's going to make them feel like utter garbage. which means, and they'll be like, well, what am I going to you for? I feel worse. And it's like, well, so I guess stepping them through that process nice and gently can be a good way to ensure that they get the longest outcome.
And it's basically treating them like a whole person. It's like, this is what we'll do first, and then we'll do this, rather than everything at once, or trying to think that everything will resolve at once. Because a lot of these issues happen over years. You're not going to resolve them from 2 weeks of herbs.
Yeah, that's right. And again, there's probably stuff that's masked. Hey, so like a lot of this stuff that they come in for, well, the root cause is buried somewhere right deep down.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it does take time to get to that, and especially I find as well with a lot of clients getting that trust so that they can open up and you can start to move through. So if you can fix or help alleviate one problem, and they trust that you know what you're doing and you're not just taking their money, which allows them to open up, and you can get deeper and deeper into that discussion.
Yeah. And also by looking at, I think, in someone's eye, you can tell their main drivers in personality-wise. So you can tell the people that you need to actually give pieces of paper to, because, they'll be avid readers. But there's other types who, don't worry about it. They're not going to read it anyway, or they'll have lost it by the time they get to the car.
Yeah, right. So your eyes can tell you all that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. You can tell a lot about personality, whether you've got lacuna, or which we call them flowers in your eye, or whether you've got jewels, which we used to call pigments in your eye.
Yeah, wow,
absolutely.
Cool. And so what other information can you get from iridology? What does it tell you, and how does that work in terms of your overall health landscape and what that's
so every single part of your iris is a reflex area to different parts of the body, much like the ears are, or the acupuncture and things like that. So by looking at it, you can tell a lot about the predispositions. So, for example, I've got lots of lacuna, which we call flowers, in my lung area, but I don't have any lung problems. And I explain this sometimes to my clients, just because it's part of my genetic history. Like my brother's got cystic fibrosis, and my mum had a child after me who died of pneumonia, and my grandmother had 3 out of 6 births. She had only 3 survive. So it's part of my sort of genetic history, and it means I've never had any lung problems. But I did fail a scuba diving test because I couldn't swim for 200 meters without stopping.
Yeah, wow.
So again, that doesn't mean I'm sick. It just means I can't do scuba diving.
Yeah.
And also I don't smoke, so I never feel like I've had a lung problem. I get maybe a cold every maybe 5 years or so. So we have different areas that we need to look after. Yeah,
definitely. So it sort of shows you more what you're susceptible to and what you should be aware of. So take the correct precautions, and you won't end up with a problem. Yeah,
and I think with any signs or anything, we never diagnose. It just adds to the questions to ask.
Yeah. That's so amazing. And so people are probably a little bit wondering about this. When would you sort of more prescribe homeopathy, and when would you prescribe herbs? What have you found is the difference between sort of when the remedies are needed, and how do you approach that?
Sure. I prescribe homeopathy a lot, especially for kids. Like kids won't take liquid herbs that much. My kids often do, and my kids kind of like them. But they don't take as much. And I find sometimes homeopathy is quicker. For example, if a kid came in with high fever, belladonna will get it down further than giving them some sort of other liquid herbs and other ways. Cool. So I just find sometimes it depends on the symptoms, but I think with respiratory issues, I might use homeopathy and herbs. But definitely for kids, I use a lot of homeopathy.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Teething. If you help kids, you help the parents because they're happier. Happier kids mean happier parents. So, like chamomilla, for instance, is one of the best remedies for teething.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And I guess this is the advantage of homeopathy too, because it's perfectly safe. Hey, so whereas you have to be really careful with your dosages for herbs, homeopathy is probably a lot easier, especially for parents to give to their children.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the kids love taking them because they're tiny little pilules, or they can do drops. So it's super easy to take. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And so when you are talking to a client about their diet, so I'm guessing the eyes will tell you, like you were saying, what type of diet they would thrive in, I suppose is the best language, isn't it? Yeah. So how do you approach that with your clients, and how does that conversation normally go?
Yeah. So let's pretend they're a blue-eyed person. They're they're better on a lymphatic type of diet. So they're better without mucus-forming foods. So, for example, things like dairy and maybe some white fat products, things like that is best to avoid. So I used to say, I want you to decrease these, because once you say to someone, I want you to stop having dairy, they're going to be like, oh, but look, people don't like stopping anything unless they really have to.
Yeah.
So I usually say 80% of the time, I want you to do this. And I have a rule called the 80-15-5 rule. So 80% of the time, I want you to follow this diet. 15% of the time, if you visit Auntie Mabel and she's made you, a beautiful cake, don't worry about if it's gluten-free or if it's got high sugar. Just have it because she's probably, really look forward to you coming, and you'll enjoy the time together. And 5% of the time, is kind of like their naughty time, because people like to feel naughty.
Yeah.
Sure. And if it's a tiramisu and a prosecco before you go to the movies, once a month, that's not really going to make that much difference.
No, definitely not. Especially if you got that 80%, hey, which you like build up that internal resilience, and
absolutely.
That 5% of the time I find is important for other ways. It's important to enjoy life and to actually get out, because when you become so militant, it really does take that color out of life sometimes.
Yeah. And I hardly have much sugar at all, but on Saturday night, being in Victoria, in regional Victoria, our state opened up and you go to a restaurant, and I had a cocktail and a dessert because I could. I was just like, yes.
Yeah, that's right. And again, it's like, because I know for us, because I've got some food allergies, so when you go out with friends, it can be a little bit difficult. But if you can find that way of still engaging, because sometimes I've had to not at all because allergies and that sort of stuff, but it does create a little bit of that barrier. So if I can, I'd take the one that's not going to upset me the most, but then I can still eat and everyone's a little bit happier, and it just makes you happier and you can engage a little bit more. So
absolutely,
by taking that 5%, it's an awesome idea, I think.
Yeah. And I kind of think rigidity isn't, it's sometimes people need to be quite rigid, but I think rigidity normally is not that good a thing either.
No, definitely. And I actually, from coming from an incredibly rigid stance, I've now noticed that by becoming a little bit more flexible, it's actually made my body far more resilient itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful, Christos. Thank you so much for coming and sharing yourself with us.
No worries. My pleasure.
Where can people find you? Where's your clinic located? Do you do Zoom calls? How does it all work in your space?
Sure.
And give us those details.
So I'm in Wangaratta in northeast Victoria. I also work at the Melbourne Natural Medicine Centre in North Melbourne, I do that a few times a month, and I also teach iridology, and I teach Bowen Therapy. So, and I do Zoom consultations, all over the place too. Yeah. But like twice a year, I teach a certification of iridology, and I normally start a Bowen Therapy course in Melbourne once a year when we're allowed to.
Yeah, excellent. And what kind of clientele are you looking for? Are you looking for everybody? Are you specializing in, like you said, children? Or what sort of clientele are you really wanting through your clientele? Are you specializing?
That kind of varies as well. I see a lot of kids, and that's probably because I've got kids as well. But as my kids have gotten older, I find I'm seeing much more teenagers.
Yeah, wow, cool.
Yeah, and lots of mums, like a lot of pregnant mums. I studied a natural fertility diploma with Francesca Naish back in 2001. Fertility is probably my great love, but it's a lot of allergies, mainly a lot of kids. And I work with in an amazing clinic with some chiropractors and an osteopath who refer to me a lot. So, and it's really good to be in a multidisciplinary clinic, because my first sort of, pretty much 18 years, I didn't really have. I worked with someone else, but never referred to me at all. So just to be somewhere where we're like-minded, and they're really super young. They're like 30, but but they're great. They're great. I really enjoy working here.
Yeah, and that's again, like you said, it's so important, because then it gives you that ability to really get your clients the help they need, because we can't be everything for everybody.
Exactly.
There will always be gaps. So I think referrals are so important in this industry to get that overall health landscape.
And I was just talking to one of the chiropractors today, and he said that he finds that their adjustments are holding more because they're doing more sort of gut work and other things.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Christos. As always, guys, the links will be in the descriptions below. Please, if you're in Wangaratta and you want to contact Christos, please get in touch, or for iridology training, because again, it is a bit of a lost art at the moment, which I think is is absolutely abhorrent because it's so wonderful. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
God bless. And for everybody else out there, have a great day, and we'll catch you all next time. Hey, see ya.
Thank you for listening to Therapist Spotlight. If you would like to know more about ANTA, visit us at www.anta.com.au.